What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about one specific element with Suicide Squad Kill Justice League that I'm pretty upset about. I think it does need to have some awareness be brought to it, and this is not necessarily targeting the game specifically. This is targeting any game that would do something like this, and in fact, we are going to use the recent example of Payday 3, which also did this, and show what it could potentially do to a game. So what am I talking about? Well, you could make the jokes, well, Alex, there's more than one thing, all this stuff, very, very funny. In all reality, this is the thing outside of like the gameplay, the game itself. This isn't even really the game itself. This is more of how it's set up. That this is troubling, and I don't like this. And I don't like it when games do this, and I think this is a very bad thing for the industry going forward. Game preservation, all sorts of other things. We'll talk about that as we go on. And what it basically is always online. This game, you'll need to be always online. And I think they've said it like just flat out outright, but you can actually go on their FAQs, which is what I was doing kind of just for fun today, and you could look at, they literally asked, you need an internet connection, right? So they readdress that you can play this game single player, like, you know, by yourself, and you can do it cooperatively with online people. By the way, no like split screen, no playing with people, say like on your couch, right? Which is not shocking. I wish more games did that, but obviously very few do. You can play it by yourself, or you can play it online. Now, here's the thing, though. Even if you play it by yourself, you still have to be connected to the internet. Now, you could say, well, Alex, it's 2023. In fact, when this game comes out, it's 2024. What's the big deal? I'll tell you what the big deal is, okay? Let's look to our good old friend Payday 3, a game that I played at launch, and funny enough, I didn't actually have the just disgusting amount of issues that a lot of other people did. I actually skirted right by it. Nothing affected me, and I'm not going to knock on wood because, you know, it was months ago, so I think I made it out. And what happened there, though, was what? Well, the game kind of broke. The game servers were down. The game had a lot of issues actually, you know, figuring things out. And what did that mean for the players? Well, that meant early on, like the first week the game came out, there were several days, or at least several nights from the stuff that I had seen online, where people could not play the video game, okay? Now, this goes into game preservation for sure, because you could say, well, you can buy the game physically. In fact, they did that Steelbook thing, which actually looks really cool, and I believe it actually comes with the physical game, which is actually nuts because even PlayStation, Xbox, they don't even do that anymore, right? You get the collector's edition, even if it comes with a case, it comes with a code, and you download the code. You don't actually get the disc itself. So with this game, I actually kind of respect that about it, but no matter what, whether you have the disc or not, the issue with this game in the game preservation's sake, and just to kind of nail home like this is a live service game, don't let that you can buy the game full price fool you. It's meant to last as long as humanly possible. Or, I mean, not really, right? That's an exaggeration. It's meant to last as long as they want it to last, okay? They're going to have the battle passes. They're going to have season passes, and, you know, battle pass would be connected to that. Now, I'm fine, like, all cosmetic, that's fine. And, you know, they address over and over and over, it's not going to affect the gameplay. Okay, we'll see how they do with, like, those additional characters. It is cool to, like, hear that early, but this is, like we keep saying, right? It is a live service game. Well, what's the issue? Well, you can't really play it, you know, if you don't have internet. Now, we're not in the 1990s. There's many places around the world. In fact, most places do have pretty functioning internet. However, I would like to throw in that even though we are, you know, advanced as a civilization, there are some, like, places that don't necessarily have the top-notch internet, okay? That is still an issue. Now, is that an issue for, like, everybody? No. The issue that's for everybody is the fact that if this game goes down, you cannot play it. And to me, I guess maybe like the older I get, I have a really serious problem with that. I mean, that's really where the split is, right? There's kind of two issues here. Number one, the first issue that we saw with Payday, and you could just like think for just a few seconds and you could figure this out, right? The idea that if the game goes down, if the servers go down, you can't play it, period. You can't play it even though it's single player. Even though you'd be playing by yourself, you wouldn't be able to play the game. And you could say, well, is that really likely to happen? Yeah, it actually, like, that's the most hilarious thing. It is likely to happen. I would bet quite a bit of money that it will happen within the first week. And that's just, I mean, that's what happens with a lot of games. A lot of games have issues, whether it's single player, multiplayer, whatever. Games have issues. the first week, maybe even the first month that it's out. And for a game that needs the internet, and if the servers go down, then you're screwed, okay? So that's the first issue. You'd be paying for a game that potentially you might not be able to play during certain times. And that does connect to part 2 of it, right? Where it's ownership. And I don't know, maybe I'm like a cranky 27-year-old man, right? Like I act like I'm 80, but this is that preservation/ownership thing where when you have these things, do you really own it? Not really. Not really. And you don't own music if you're just streaming it on Spotify. You don't own movies if you watch it through Disney Plus. You don't own it. You're renting a license to it is really what you're doing. You do not own it at all unless it's in your hand, right? So that's just like one thing to throw out there. When it comes to this game, that's also what makes me mad, right? You could get the game physically, have it, but you don't really have it, especially because it's connected. And here's another thing to kind of think of, right? You could say, well, Alex, you do have the game. Like, you would trust that they have everything. And yeah, that's like, here's the thing. I'm still getting the game. You could call me hypocritical. I'm just bringing awareness to this issue, okay? I like to talk. I like to hear myself talk, I guess. I like to talk about these things, okay? But granted, I am still going to get this game. But I just want to throw out one more part to this, okay? Look at what's been happening over the last couple of years, and what is that? Well, a lot of game servers have been going offline, right? Because they don't last, years and years later. We've had Assassin's Creed, right? A lot of the multiplayer of, like, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, kind of on, like, that era. We have, actually, in just a few days, Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2, and all this stuff, right? You had a game like Knockout City, the dodgeball game, that was out for, like, a year and a half or 2 years, and that game shut down. But really, those first couple examples, right? Games that are, say, 10 years old, and at the 10-year mark, the company decides to take the servers down. Now, why is it important for this game? That means this game has an actual life to it, a life expectancy, right? Because at any point, now I'm not saying in the next 2-3, like, it's not going to happen, right? 2-3 years, you're safe. But 7 years down the line, 8 years down the line, 9 years. Now, we don't know where we'll be, as a human. You don't know where you'll be. I don't know where I'm going to be in 9-10 years. But the general, again, like this cranky old man kind of thing that I'm going on here, right? You don't own it because in 9 to 10 years, you can show me you have the physical disc. And I would say, well, that's great. I'm glad you bought it physically. But here's the thing. They'll still shut it down. So in 10 years from now, when they say, yep, we're done, like, why would we pay for the servers for Suicide Squad when nobody's playing it? It's also been 10 years. There's no point. That's true. I mean, like, in a lot of ways, how many people are playing the Dead Space multiplayer right now? How many people even knew Dead Space 2 had multiplayer? How many people are playing Bad Company? Well, that one, people are playing Bad Company. But when they shut those down, at least, it's still bad. It's still terrible. And EA's done this a lot. At least it's only part of the game. You know what I mean? Like, it's not great, but like Bad Company 2, you still have the single player, even though the multiplayer is going offline, and it's also years later. But if you get the disc, you still have the game, you just don't have the multiplayer part. It's bad, but it's not the worst case. For any game like this, Payday 3 as well, any game like this, it is the worst case scenario. Because in 10 years, in 15 years, you guys watch, maybe you don't, but like retrospective videos, say on YouTube, right? When you take a look at a game that's 25 years old, 20 years old, 15 years old, do you ever want to see one of those for Suicide Squad in 15 years from now? You might say no, and that's fine, but like, what about that? And not even just that. What about, like, I don't know, the random person that says, yeah, in 10 years from now, yeah, I want to go back to play Suicide Squad. I own it. It's my right to go back and play it. Isn't it? Is it not? Right? That you can do that. So guess what? They can't do it. You know what I mean? And that does make me upset, because especially the older I get, the more into, like, I've gotten even more into gaming, actually, the older I've gotten. And, I've made a third channel that does do retrospective stuff. I've bought PS3, 360 era, PS2. I've bought probably 30 or so games, or got it for birthdays or Christmases over the last year and a half, okay? I'm getting much more into that, and I really like it, and I like the idea that I can throw together a video, or not even just for video, like content creation. You could just go play. You want to play, like, Star Wars Battlefront 2, like the original? You can. You want to know why? Because it still works. Like, the disc is there, and the stuff is on the disc. The content is on the disc, right? Even get PS4 games, Xbox One games, like, they're on the disc. For a game like this, and again, I am obviously attacking Suicide Squad, I guess, in this way, but it's the industry. It's not just, like, it absolutely isn't. Payday 3 just did this. Even just digital games, like Alan Wake scares me. Alan Wake 2, being just digital, that's a huge red flag. Now, it's my game of the year, funny enough, but because it's a great game, but it's just a really dumb decision, I think, to do it like that. So, again, this has nothing to do with, like, the people working at Rocksteady, like, hard slaving over the computer every single day. Like, more respect to them. That's totally fine. And again, it's not even just necessarily Suicide Squad. It's the industry. I don't like that in 10 years' time, they can tell you, even if you have the game, you don't have the game. You do not, because they can just shut the stuff down because everything is attached to it being online. And I don't know what genius, thought this would be a good move for the industry to go into in the last, like, 5 or so years. But this will come back to bite, like, again, maybe half a decade, in a full decade, when a bunch of these games that have just come out over the last 3 or 4 years, when they all hit that time where it's not just the multiplayer going offline, right? You wouldn't just lose the Bad Company 2 multiplayer. How about losing the entire game? Like, and we just had that with Knockout City, right? The whole game's gone. So, I mean, there's mods and stuff. Like, there's that. But the average Joe, you think they're going to, install mods and fan kind of recreations of it in order to make it work? No, they're not going to do that, right? So I wouldn't even use that as an excuse. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.